I finished up the Alienated trilogy, so that means that it's time for another series wrap-up. I'm positive that this is going to be another short video, if only because there wasn't a whole lot of substance to this story. Let's get to it, shall we? Invaded picked up almost right where we left off at the end of Alienated. In an effort to save themselves, the aliens decided that it would be best if Elix and Cyrene went back down to Earth to try and salvage the human-Lahir alliance. Yes, I gave up trying to spell that. Deal with it. Kara, however, is to continue on to the other planet where she will do her student exchange as originally planned. However, aside from her brother, she's the only other human there, since the author clearly didn't want to write about that creepy French boy who had the makings of a rapist, and I think the Chinese kid was murdered? Who knows? Not the author. Neither of them were mentioned past the first book, so I don't care. On the other planet, everything shifts from people who were mean to me in high school to people who were mean to me in high school. Alien Edition. Yep, that's right. The author could have literally written anything, but instead chose to write high school bullies. Granted, it does come with the side of xenophobia, but at the same time, come on. It's a completely different species, but these girls are practically acting out the plot to Mean Girls. But literally none of this is important in the long run either. Much like the exchange students from France and China, these bully characters might as well be talking rocks for all that they contribute to the overall plot. On the other side of the galaxy, Elix and Cyrene join the Earth ambassador named Steffa and go on a publicity tour. One of their guards is named David, and Elix is quick to strike up a friendship with the man. Cyrene, however, is quick to fall for him. Elix helps the two of them hook up despite Cyrene going into the relationship practically kicking and screaming. She wants it, but she doesn't, you know? The actual plot revolves around a series of small drone-like objects crashing down into the planet. Two of the alien leaders named Jackson and Easley keep covering up the entire thing, which strikes her as being funny. Another minor plot that's been going on is that the aliens are attempting to set up an interracial colony on the other side of the planet. Jackson and Easley take Kara out there, and she takes in the beautiful views and a historical burial site. But Kara is more than a little put off when Jackson attempts to do something to her, almost like he's trying to brainwash her, but that's silly, right? Things reach ahead when Kara is alone and witnesses another drone crashing down to the planet. She races out to where it landed and takes it back to her dorm. It attempts to communicate with her, but in no language Kara can understand. She hands the things over to Jackson and Easley after a while. Again, Jackson tries to brainwash Kara, and Kara knows that something is up. It's not long after this that one of the mean girls gets viciously attacked. Kara panics when she finds a bloody knife under her pillow and knows that she's being set up. She demands a solo audience with one of the leaders, a woman named Alana. There, Kara reveals her knack of silent speech, which she's been practicing with Alix's sister this entire time. Since you cannot lie while doing silent speech, Kara tells her truth of how she thinks that she's been set up. She then goes on to explain about how Jackson keeps trying to brainwash her. Alona then reveals something. When the aliens had uncovered the ancient burial site over where the colony is to be built, they moved the bodies to allow for further study. It was right around this time that the leaders realized that they, as a species, were deteriorating and they couldn't keep going on as they had been. They decided to try and make clones from the bodies uncovered, but the DNA was badly broken, so they filled it in with their own DNA. Jackson and Easley were the first 2 of 10 clones that they made before they decided that it wasn't exactly working and stopped the project. Not long after this, Kara has to leave to go back to Earth so that she can send the Alliance papers. Meanwhile, stuff with Elix has been progressing, much in the same way that the Mean Girl subplot was going. It's not important, yet we keep jumping back to it over and over. He keeps getting death threats, which is why the 3 aliens have guards with them at all times. But as the book continues on towards the end, it is revealed that David had actually been under orders from Jackson to try and assassinate Elix. Why, you ask? Because David has some incurable genetic illness that's going to kill him sooner rather than later. Jackson had given him an alien cure, but not all of it. The rest would be delivered upon successful removal of Elix. Except, do you remember of how I told you that David and Cyrene were now a couple, and how he and Elix are friends now? His feelings have obviously changed, and he's a little reluctant to do so. In the end, David takes a bullet to the chest, and it's not something that he gets up from. Nope. Dead. Except now that Jackson's plan has been revealed, or at least part of it. Kara and Elix work to try and stop Jackson and Easley from trying to do everything that they can to stop the alliance from happening. In the end, the 2 of them get away, but not before revealing themselves and their true alliance to everybody, including their own species. Or should I say, like, half of their species? See, they're actually working for another species called the Airball. No, I don't know how that's pronounced either, which is where most of their DNA actually comes from. But put a pin into this because we'll circle back in a moment. After this, Kara is put onto the alien council is the human part. Her main goal is something that she'd been doing all along, working to get the colony up for the humans. Elix and Kara return to the other planet together along with the others and David's body so that Cyrene can bury him. But despite how much of the two books build up to the colony, so little time is actually spent with Kara and Elix living there, or at least on page. There's a several month time skip where we see how they've settled into the colony right at the start of the third book. It's also worth noting that I feel like this book should not have been considered young adult. It was fine when Kara was going to school, kind of touch and go when she was attending school on the alien planet. But at the start of the third book, there was literally any mention as to the fact that Kara is barely 18 years old. She and Elix are living together and doing the thing that all cohabitating romantic couples do. You know exactly what I mean. This is not for children. Right when the book is starting to get settled into this, the Airball make contact and basically say, "We're going to destroy you if the two of you don't separate." And to prove that they're serious, they destroy one of the ships in orbit around the planet. Kara, Alex, and all of the named characters, minus those on the council, race back to Earth to... Yeah, okay, I've got nothing as to why they were in such a hurry to get back. I literally finished the book the other day, but I'm struggling to remember the finer details. They basically go back to Earth because the plot demands it. Once there, Kara tries to go to a meeting with the President of the United States, only for them to realize that Jackson and Easley had already beaten them to it. Everybody is now brainwashed. After our heroes are forced to go on the run, a huge announcement is made about how the aliens will be hunted down, which is probably a good thing that they were forced to leave before that. Following this, there's a really long scene where Elix teaches Kara how to fly his shuttlecraft. The aliens then return to the ship, headed back towards the other planet, only for them to leave out a waste hatch in the bathroom as Kara scoops out from the air. After that, they end up chasing after Jackson and Easley, who were going around and blowing up fertilizer factories. Troy, Kara's brother, who has been around but irrelevant to anything important, thinks that is to cut off food production, but that's long-term planning and not counting on farmers returning to more traditional fertilizers such as cow patties. In the first factory, Kara comes face to face with Jackson as well as an unexpected new player. Well, sort of. See, Jackson wanted Kara, but when it was obvious that she would rather stick a fork into an electrical socket than to be with him, Jackson decides to take matters into his own hands. He had taken a DNA sample from her and cloned her, but clones on the Lahir planet are born as babies, so he used airball technology to age up the clone, named Rune. So she might look like she's 17, but she has the mental maturity of her real age, which is a few months. After barely making it out from the factory alive, our band of heroes regroups in the desert. As they decide what to do next, Kara and Elle start to get suspicious of Cyrene's odd behavior. Kara and Elle eventually set off on their own to a storage unit in New York. There they find the body of David in a cryopod. Easley had gotten to Cyrene and promised to bring back her dead boyfriend in exchange for information. Elix is insanely hurt by this, especially because he ended up getting into a huge argument with Kara in Cyrene's defense. Having apparently run out of fertilizer factories to blow up Jackson, Easley, and Rune, then move on to blowing up mines. Again, the group is still working under the assumption that the others are blowing up things simply to try and cripple the food industry. But even then, they don't know why, when they could be blowing up weapon manufacturing plants and such. It's there in a mine that a battle against Easley that the girl tumbles off the lip and into the open mine where she dies. In an even more crushing blow, our heroes also snag Jackson's ship, which leaves him with Elix's shuttle, which Jackson destroyed in an airball weapon staff. Kara is able to get the coordinates of the airball planet to a group of alien and human volunteers who want to try and stop the airball. That was going on in the background, but in the end it didn't seem to matter in any way. Our heroes regroup at a safe house. Kara gets in contact with Jackson to try and talk him and the airball out of doing this. He refuses but spells out exactly how the airball attack is going to go. But Kara got the drop on him by using a holographic display of herself to talk to him. As he runs off, he abandons Rune. Rune, meanwhile, has gone from looking like Kara's twin sister to looking like Kara's mother. They take her into custody, where the Sweeney family finds some odd common ground with her by showing her old family photos of Bill and Eileen's parents. Since she's Kara's clone, she obviously looks a lot like both sides of her family. A few days after this, every single electronic device, battery-powered or otherwise, stops working, exactly as Jackson had said that it would. But all of the alien technology still works, so the group of them rush to the Empire State Building to stop Jackson from getting picked up by the airball. After a fight, Jackson is dead, and Rune lies down in his arms to die with him since she's now an elderly woman. That taken care of, the group of them rushes up to space to try and stop the airball from destroying the Earth. There's a lot of moving around, but in the end, the thing that destroys them is the real reason why the fertilizer plants and mines are being blown up, because dirt from both plants is highly toxic to the species. So our heroes simply pour dirt into the air vents and let nature take its course. After this, the airball concede defeat and promised to leave both species alone. The real reason why the airball was so set against the Union was simply because if the two of them teamed up, then the airball would no longer be considered godlike, which, sweetie, you might have seeded both of those planets with life, but that was literally millions of years ago. It's time to grow up and admit that things have changed. The book ends with the main airball sending along one vial of anti-dead serum with some of the exploratory crew who had come down to the airball planet. It's taken to Kara, who uses it to bring David back from the dead, which, good thing that he's been on ice this entire time rather than to be buried in the ground like Cyrene had originally wanted. And in the end, even Cyrene gets her happy ending, as contrived and dumb as it might have been. Overall, this series was a solid C. There was a lot of stuff that happened. Stuff that filled up 3 books, in fact, but a lot of it was dumb stuff that contributed nothing to the actual plot. The 3rd book was the best of the series, if only because it wasn't focused on the terrible relationship between Kara and Elix. But even then, the moments of action and thrill were bogged down with them sitting around in various safe houses, basically twiddling their thumbs. Scenes that went on for way too long and without literally any plot whatsoever. And it's not to say that I thought that Kara's and Elix's relationship were toxic and that the two of them were bad for one another, because I thought that they were actually kind of cute. But my problem is the problem, as I explained in the 1st book. I felt like their relationship kind of came out of nowhere. The author had 3 books, but never once bothered to make me care about it at all. Furthermore, when Kara was on the alien planet for like a year, she never once said stuff like, "Wow, I miss my mom and dad." She was never shown contacting them or anything. At the end of the 1st book, Kara talks to her parents and they promise to get in touch with Tori, who was not actually a traitor. But Tori's role in the story began and ended in the 1st book. She was not mentioned in passing, and there was no resolution for Tori by the end of the trilogy. And forget about people like Eric, too. Marcus and Brandy are also out. And it's not so much that I mind Kara not sparing any thought about the people who tried to murder her or her racist ex-boyfriend, but for a friend who'd actually been there for Kara all along, only as a secret agent. At least in the 3rd book, Kara was reunited with her parents. Even if they served no actual point to the plot, at least there was some amount of closure. We never got that with Tori. Also, this book was bogged down with too many background plots that served no purpose. A romance plot with Troy and Elix's sister Elle, a random alien professor who went down to Earth with them and stayed behind to help the scientists get the power back on. We somehow got more closure for the professor than we got with Tori. In the end, this was not the worst series that I've read, and it was even somewhat enjoyable in parts, but it felt clunky, like a teenager's first attempt to write a full-length series. There was too much clogging up the main plot and too many threads left dangling. The aliens then returned to the ship, headed back towards the other